So congratulations to Fulham as their promotion to the Premier League is now confirmed, but plenty of other things still to play for this weekend in the Championship. We've still got 2 relegation spots up for grabs, we've got the race for the top 6, and without any further ado, let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We're back for our weekly score predictions heading into the weekend's action. We've got some massive clashes coming up, especially in and around the top 6 this weekend. I want to get your guys' thoughts on all the games in the comments down below. As always, if you're going to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. But without any further ado, let's jump into these. And starting out with tonight's game in Yorkshire, we've got Huddersfield going up against Barnsley, where a couple of different things could be decided in this one. If Huddersfield win, they go ahead and guarantee their place in the top 6, and if Barnsley lose, that guarantees their relegation to League One. Only a win will do for Barnsley in this game if they want to go ahead and keep their survival hopes alive, and it looks like pretty slim pickings, to be honest, when we consider that Barnsley have only won 1 game on the road all season. They've got the worst away record in the Championship. Huddersfield going well at this point in time, and while a top 2 place looks pretty unlikely, it is still possible. They're 4 points behind Bournemouth at this point in time, but with the games in hand that Bournemouth have, more than likely it'll be a top 6 finish for Huddersfield, which I'm sure they'll be more than happy to wrap up tonight. So for a score prediction in this one, I am going to go 2-0 Huddersfield, which would confirm their place in the top 6 and would relegate Barnsley to League One. 2-0 Huddersfield for me. FIFA's going 1-0 Huddersfield. Next then to Kenilworth Road for Luton up against Blackpool. Luton also have the potential to guarantee a top 6 finish this weekend, although it does look a little bit more unlikely than Huddersfield, as Luton will need to win their match, and they're also relying on both Millwall and Middlesbrough dropping points this weekend. But regardless of if they get it over the line in this game week or not, they are still in with a strong shout of promotion come the end of the season. Although this could be a potential banana skin against the Blackpool side, who looked really quite good last time out at Bloomfield Road, albeit they were against an absolutely hopeless Birmingham side as they put 6 goals past them in the process. Luton will make things significantly more difficult for them. I remember the reverse fixture when Luton came to Bloomfield Road. They put on a decent show in that one, scored 3 goals, and I think that Luton probably do get through this one if their intensity is right for this game. I do see them coming away with all 3 points, but listen, Blackpool have nothing to play for, and that pressure could actually help them in terms of playing with the shackles off like we saw against Birmingham. But all in all, Luton, I think, win this game. I'm going to go 2-1 to the home side, with FIFA going 2-0 Luton. They look good recently, haven't they? And if there was ever a side that needed a bounce back from last weekend, it was certainly Birmingham, who, like we just mentioned, were absolutely hopeless against Blackpool. And while they may not have anything to play for, I think the pressure is seriously mounting on Lee Bowyer now after how much they've actually slumped in recent weeks. This isn't going to be an easy game by any means to go ahead and bounce back in. The game against Millwall, who have still got absolutely everything to play for, and with the way that Sheffield United have been faltering recently, I really think that Millwall could smell the blood here. Their next couple of matches I think are quite winnable, so if they win this one and their next game, I think they could be in a fantastic position heading into the final weekend to go ahead and snatch a top 6 place away from Sheffield United. Millwall tend to keep things quite tight, and Birmingham looked absolutely all over the shop defensively against Blackpool. So score prediction, I don't see Millwall getting 6 goals in this game, but I do see them leaving with all 3 points. I'm going to go 2-0 Millwall in this one, with FIFA going 2-0 Millwall as well. And then next up to a top of the table clash as Bournemouth go up against Fulham. Scott Parker up against his former side once again, and this should be a fascinating game. While Fulham have gone ahead and sealed promotion back up to the Premier League, they could still have quite the influence on how the top 6 shapes up come the end of the season. Their remaining 4 matches are up against Bournemouth, Forest, Luton and Sheffield United, so all sides who are currently in the top 6. For Bournemouth, I mean, more so than anyone, they've probably got Forest in the back of their minds, but they have got a 7-point cushion over Forest at this point in time. And you'd think that with the way that Parker's set Middlesbrough up recently, particularly against sides in the top 6, I think he may be happy to walk away with a point from this one, and then they go into back-to-back away games against Swansea and Blackburn, which he'll probably be targeting 6 points from. You know, Borough have recently had those goalless draws against Sheff United and Middlesbrough, and then that was followed up by that fantastically clinical display away at Swansea. Fulham, I'm really not sure what their levels are going to be like between now and the end of the season, as they have already gone ahead and clinched promotion. They looked pretty comfortable in midweek against Preston, but we didn't really put up all too much of a fight really, and they're now going into games against teams who have still got everything to play for. So score prediction for this one, I think Parker, like I said, may just be a bit more reserved for this game, and a point's not a bad result for Bournemouth. So with that thinking, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game. FIFA's going 1-0 Fulham. Be interesting to see how many goals Mitrovic gets in these final four and what other records he'll go on to break this season. Next up then to Derby up against Bristol City. Two sides now who don't have anything to play for, with Derby's relegation confirmed at the weekend. The Bristol City, who are just sort of in limbo in mid-table at this point in time. It does still, however, feel like there is, I wouldn't say a feel-good factor around Derby, but a sense of optimism heading into the future, with obviously Kirchner in place there, heading into next season. Obviously some things with that still need to be finalised, but even despite the relegation, I still think there'll be an atmosphere at Derby like we saw in that Fulham game as well. I'm sure the Derby fans will still come out in full force to show their support to this team, which has battled so hard throughout the season. And Bristol City have been a little bit up and down on the road recently, really. I think they've won 2 of their last 4 away matches, both those wins coming later on as well. So if this game is quite finely poised, you'd back maybe Bristol City to come up with a late goal, but I've got a feeling that Derby won't particularly let their levels drop, even with relegation confirmed, because I think that we've sort of thought that might be the case for Derby for quite some time now, really. And at home, they tend to put on a bit of a show for their fans. So for that reasoning, I think Derby could win this game. I'm going to go 2-1 Derby. The home record's been really strong this season. FIFA's going 1-1. Not that it really matters in the grand scheme of things. Hull up against Reading, I think has the potential to be quite a fun game this weekend, actually. There's every chance that Barnsley have already been relegated by the time that Reading play this fixture, and Peterborough will also be relegated this weekend if they don't go ahead and better Reading's result, and that looks pretty improbable with Peterborough going up against Forest this weekend. I do see a few goals being scored in this one. Reading obviously had a brilliant Easter weekend, picking up 4 points across their 2 fixtures. That bizarre 4-4 draw, brilliant second half comeback against Swansea. Up against the Hull side, who picked up 3 points over the Easter weekend. Finally, they got the monkey off the back of that really awful home record that they've had recently. They still have, I think, the worst home record in the league, actually, but finally getting back to winning ways at home with that win over Cardiff. I see a few goals being scored in this one. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw, and I think that there's every chance that that goes ahead and confirms safety for Reading, with FIFA going 1-0 Reading. And next up then to Peterborough up against Forest, like we were just mentioning then for Reading. Every chance that this could be the end for Peterborough this weekend. If they don't go ahead and better Reading's result, they will be relegated back down to League One. And I mean, for survival from here on out for Peterborough, despite their recent improvement, they're going to need to be pretty flawless in all of their matches, and Reading are going to have to lose all of theirs. Up against the Forest side isn't going to be easy. Forest going well at the moment, you know, bounced back emphatically with that win over West Brom after how the Luton game had unfolded, and still just about in the hunt maybe for a top 2 finish. If Bournemouth go ahead and drop points this weekend, Forest could make a little bit of ground back up on them. They're 7 points behind them at the moment, but the interesting thing is they still have that head-to-head matchup coming up on the second to last game week of the season. Obviously, both Forest and Bournemouth still have 5 games to play, so still quite a bit of football to be going on in that time period. But I think Forest win this game, even with Peterborough not being the pushovers that they were a few months ago. I think Forest get the job done here. I'm going to go 2-1 Forest, with FIFA going 1-0 Forest. Next then to Sheffield United up against Cardiff. Now Sheffield United have really left the door open to the chase impact behind them with their recent tail off in form, and a lot of this is down to really not taking chances. Now there is a possibility that Billy Sharp is back for the Blades this weekend, which would be a huge boost to their starting setup. You know, at the moment it seems like they're almost exclusively reliant on Morgan Gibbs-White coming up with a moment of magic to win them a match. Their problem has been consistently hitting the back of the net. In their last 8 matches, they've only scored more than 1 goal once in one of their last 8, and even that came against one of the worst defensive setups in the league in Barnsley. So the fear for Sheffield United is that they have a slip up in, you know, one of these next 2 matches, and with Millwall especially, I think having a couple of really winnable games coming up, there's every chance that Sheff United could slip out of the top 6 heading into the final weekend, which certainly wouldn't be ideal with how they were placed just a few weeks ago. Cardiff can be a bit of a tricky side as well, could certainly snatch a goal on a break or a set piece or something like that. Sheff United don't tend to concede all too many goals at Bramall Lane, but because they're not really scoring all too consistently at the moment, it just takes, you know, one lucky break from Cardiff and suddenly Sheff United really could be up against it. I do see another fairly low scoring game, but I'm just going to edge Sheff United here because I think they really need to win this game with a few sides breathing down their neck now. I'm going to go 1-0 Sheffield United with FIFA going for a 1-1 draw. Now over the Easter weekend, QPR gave themselves a small amount of hope of reaching the top 6 come the end of the season with that win over Derby late on. The problem with QPR this calendar year has been consistency. The last time they put together back-to-back wins in the Championship, we're pretty much going back to the start of January, which has been their real issue. It is interesting though because they are only 3 points off the top 6 at this point in time, despite their recent form, and they still have a home game against Sheffield United to come up in the next game week as well, which could be absolutely decisive for QPR in their season. Stoke, I don't think it'll be a rollover though. They've been a little bit up and down in terms of their recent form. Over the Easter weekend, it was a win and a loss for them. Obviously got that good away win at Blackburn. With QPR's inconsistency, I wouldn't be surprised if this one sort of fizzles out into a draw, which doesn't really help QPR out in their top 6 pursuit. If they want to, you know, be back amongst that conversation, I think they need to win this weekend, but I'm not all too confident they go ahead and do that. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. FIFA's going 1-0 QPR. Next up then to the Liberty for Swansea up against Middlesbrough. Boy, could Middlesbrough do with a win in this game. Now, they still have a trick up their sleeves, Middlesbrough, in terms of that extra game in hand that they have over the teams above them. And they are still only 3 points off the top 6, but their recent form would suggest that they're not going to go ahead and overcome the sides above them. It wasn't an ideal Easter weekend from them. They got a decent enough point at Fulham, but couldn't follow it up with a result against Huddersfield, which now means they're without a win in their last 4 matches as we really enter the crunch part of the season. And we're getting into a stage where points and draws don't really do enough for these sides at the moment. And this isn't going to be a walk in the park for Middlesbrough either. Even with Swansea ever so slightly tailing off in their last couple of matches. You know, I don't think they were at their sparkling best against Barnsley, and they had a bit of a second half collapse against Reading. They have been playing some terrific football recently, and there is the feeling that Russell Martin has now perfectly struck that balance with their attacking third and some of the patterns of play that they've got going on with sort of, you know, Obafemi and Perot working off him and things like that. They are also on the longest unbeaten run currently in the Championship, Swansea, unbeaten in their last 7, and I think they'll make it difficult for Middlesbrough in this one, who haven't really had all too much of a goal threat about them recently. Score prediction, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. FIFA's going 1-0 Swansea, but Middlesbrough really need to get back to winning ways sooner rather than later, don't they? West Brom up against Coventry doesn't really have all too much riding on it, albeit Coventry still have a slim chance maybe of a top 6 finish, but that loss last time against Bournemouth was probably the final blow to that. Coventry, coincidentally in that game, I thought actually played some decent football and probably should have had a few goals for themselves in the first half. Up against the West Brom side, who have been very unpredictable, 3 points over the Easter weekend. They obviously won late on against Blackpool, but didn't really put up much of a fight against Forest. That game got away from them quite early, to be honest, after that red card, you know, down to 10 men, the penalty goes in, and from then on it was always going to be a bit of an uphill battle. Coventry like to create chances, and as they showed in the Birmingham game, I think probably will be right up for this one. And for a score prediction, why not? I'll back Cov for this one. 2-1 away from home. FIFA's going at 1-1. Coventry just seem like they might have a little bit more about them in the final third. And then finishing it off with Monday night's game, we've got Preston go against Blackburn in a Lancashire derby. Preston, nothing to play for at this point in time. We're really just out here to sort of spoil the party, as it were, for Blackburn, who, despite their recent run of form, are still in with a shot of the top 6 with how Sheffield United have been faltering recently, but no one's really faltered more so in the new year than Blackburn have. Preston have been going fairly well in terms of our home matches recently. We are unbeaten in the last 5 games at Deepdale, having won 3 out of our last 4 home matches, albeit Fulham absolutely took us apart in midweek, but Fulham were more than up for that game. And Blackburn, I don't think we've quite seen as sharp a fall off from a side in the Championship for quite some time really. In the first half of the season, Blackburn were averaging 1.87 points per game and 1.79 goals per game. In the second half of the season, they've been averaging less than a point per game, so relegation form pretty much, and they've also been averaging 0.53 goals per game, which is the real damning statistic. Blackburn did win last time they came to Deepdale, but on the grand scheme of things, Preston tend to do fairly well in this fixture when Blackburn do rock up to Preston. I've got a feeling that Ryan Lowe's going to get the boys up for this one. You know, we performed in the Blackpool game, and we'll be out to spoil the party for Blackburn in this one. For a score prediction, why not? I'll go 2-1 Preston, with FIFA going 1-0 Preston. But guys, there we have it. Those are my score predictions heading into the weekend. We've only got 3 or so proper game weeks left in this Championship season, but still loads to play for. I want to get your guys' verdicts on the games going on this weekend in the comments down below. Do leave your score predictions down there, and do also leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy today's video. Apart from that though guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.